Hi, I did a video a while back talking about how I think that the MHRM mostly is fighting the fringe elements of feminism. It's you could see it in evidence whenever there's a conference or a lecture pertaining to men's issues. We don't hear now making any statements, or they're not the ones coming out, pulling fire alarms and giving us the finger and cursing at us. It's generally the fringe elements. But recently, though, National Organization for Women and also feminist-leaning publications online are taking notice of the MHRM. They're doing hit pieces on us, and now seems to be having to actually say what they stand for, whereas for like 40 years they've been the establishment. Nobody was even allowed to criticize them, and there was no media outlets for them to do so. But now we have great media outlets, and so now many people are questioning now as to, first of all, what's your purpose for existence? What's your mission statement? What's your goals? And what are your actions? Now, for now to actually exist, you must have a goal, an overriding goal or mission statement that has to be substantial enough for you to exist. In other words, if you stand for equal rights, which I believe that most people believe that you do, and that's what you basically were founded on, equality with men, because when you say you want to be equal, if you want to have equality, that always connotes a comparison with something or someone, and it's always got to be with men. So when you say you want equality, that means you want equality with men. On the other hand, if you don't believe that you are fighting for equality and you are fighting for women's rights, which I believe that's what you are now, say so. And don't pretend that you're for equality with men. So if the goal was equality for now, then I would say that mission accomplished, because I don't see anything in your mission statement that says you're not equal to men anymore. There's nothing about equality in your mission statement or your issues. I'll read what your issues are. Here we are. Economic equality. That's really the only time we see the word equality. And so in this subject of your issue, economic equality, you say that you would like to see the ERA passed. But of course you and all other mainstream feminist groups are not pushing for the ERA. You don't even have an ERA set and written for you to push. You know what you do? I see that you have one of your mission statements is women's rights must be guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. And there was a big issue about it a few years ago where Now said that Scalia, Supreme Court Justice Scalia, had said that women's rights were not encapsulated in the Constitution. And it isn't, because men's rights aren't also. So that was a red herring. But as far as pushing for the ERA, rather than actually writing an ERA and pushing all the lapdogs like Obama and Joe Biden to push for it, and Michelle, which I'm sure, well, you have Hillary now, push for that ERA. But you know what? Most learned people in MHRM and smarter people who've done this research, they know that the ERA would bring women down a notch, because if they were going to be equal in rights to men, they would lose rights. Either that, they would keep their rights, but men would get equal rights. In other words, women, you would have to fight in war and get drafted. Men would have reproductive rights. And also, little boys wouldn't have their foreskins mutilated upon being born. So let me read this little piece of nonsense that pretends that you want the ERA, but you don't. Women's rights must be guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. And here is this petition. See, they're not really pushing the ERA. They want to make it look like they're doing something as far as equal rights for men and women. They don't want equal rights. They want special rights. So they're putting this ERA thing on the back burner. But they do want to give it some lip service with this petition. You know what this petition says? It's very simple. We need to add an ERA, an Equal Rights Amendment, to the Constitution that will guarantee women and men equal status under the law. I stand with now, today, to demand that Congress and the states put women in the Constitution. Well, I guess that would have to be an amendment, and that would be an ERA, and almost all of us in the men's human rights movement would welcome an ERA, because that would actually give men equal rights with women. Okay, another one of their issues, now's issues, abortion rights. Well, I don't blame women for wanting to have reproductive rights. Men want the same rights, but we don't have it. So in that instance, that's not something that women would want equality with men on. So this issue for that now lists as something women seek, you mean women would like to continue having this special privilege as far as reproductive rights. Sure, abortion is an issue for them because they would like it less restricted than more restricted. But guess what? We don't have it, and men don't have any. So as far as there being a war on women's reproductive rights, no, that would be somebody's choice to maybe stop women from having special reproductive privileges, which that wouldn't be us, but us in the MHRM want everyone to have reproductive rights. Here's another issue. Oh, women's reproductive freedom and women's health issues. I don't think women would want equality with men's health in this issue also. So there again, they don't seek equality with the state of men's health, because we don't have an office on men's health, as far as I know. There's no Violence Against Men Act either. So I think women have many more rights and better health than men. So again, that's just now's privilege, list of privilege, not issues. Now number 3, or rather number 4 issue is oppose racism. Did I get the wrong website? Oh no, that was the right website. So National Organization for Women has now co-opted the civil rights movement. How can you do that with a straight face? Oppose racism? That is not related to women's rights. That's a totally different issue. And as I've said before, that is a real issue. Civil rights. Blacks were slaves at one point in this country. Terrible. Women were never slaves, ever. So that's a co-option there. Okay, here's another so-called issue from now. Fight bigotry against LGBT. I guess lesbian, gays, bisexual, and trans people. That's also another co-option of someone else's cause. That doesn't belong here, National Organization for Women. I thought this was for women and their terrible lot in life. So I guess you really couldn't find any more terrible examples of women's issues. So now you have LGBT issues. It's not related at all. You know, us in the men's movement, we have different races in our movement. We have gay people, trans, bisexual, lesbians in the midst of our movement, but we don't bring them in and say we're going to add to our grievances. Our grievances are the discrimination of men and boys. We don't need to water it down. It's strong enough. And here's another issue by now. National Organization for Women. End violence against women. Okay. I guess if you cared only about women, that would be, if you are a women's rights organization, I guess that would be legit. But it wouldn't be right if you were an equality-minded organization that only did care about equality, because there's more violence against men in every instance, by men, um, by women. Um, they suffer violence at the hands of everybody more than women do. That's a fact. I think we should stop violence against everyone. Now you're very embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourselves because now the spotlight is on you, and people have always believed, and this is what you still say, that you're for equality for women. That would mean compared to men. And for you to say that men don't have issues, or you don't care about those issues, you're just going to lose followers. You're just going to lose credibility. Okay, getting back to some of these mission statements, issues, and goals. Some of the embarrassment that National Organization of Women has endured recently is they had, of course, for many years, early on, they were basically an organization for equality, but not too long after, they came out against shared parenting. And there's decades of evidence of this, and Voice for Men and many other groups have brought up the evidence because it's right there on now the National Organization for Women archives showing that time after time they would come out against fatherless groups and shared parenting. I'll have to read you some of this because I don't even understand it myself. How can you say you're for equality and to unchain women from the shackles of marriage and motherhood, and then you come out and say you don't want any help at home with children? You'd rather do it all yourself, and you'd rather collect the paycheck. You'd rather collect the child support to pay for it, or the government. So what happened was these archives were taken down by National Organization for Women, and the whole world saw it. Of course, all these documents were already saved, and archived previously, so they're not going to be going away. So we all brought it up. Many different websites brought it up and said, look, it's right here, 1970s. You were against shared parenting. You demonized men and fathers groups, saying that they were just batterers and they just wanted to get out of paying child support. What a horrible, hateful thing to say. You had no evidence for it. You're actually sabotaging your own supposed goals of freeing women from having to take care of children 24/7, unpaid labor. Why don't you let fathers have equal chance of parenting, equal rights of parenting? This way, we will all have the opportunities to become full human beings. This is what the supposed feminists have been saying, but now would say one thing and do another. Okay, that's the embarrassment here. So I don't know how a group who's got such an enormous task that they say they have as to granting women first-class status in the world, that they have to fish up issues and have to hide their stances in a lot of on these issues. Why wouldn't you be proud of your stances? And why don't you come out and say your victories and be proud of them? And like when you do win those victories, when are you going to call it a day and go home? When are you going to say, look, we've won this one, let's check that off and move on? Or maybe check them all off and maybe join the humanist movement. It's funny, I couldn't put it more plainly, but than this T-shirt here. Feminism is patriarchy in lipstick. Now hasn't really changed any of those issues or problems that they said they had as far as freeing women from the burdens of the home and taking care of children. They didn't like that, and neither did most women. They liked to be in charge of the home and children, and they liked having them, keeping them, and having other people pay for their support. They liked that. That was another supposed goal of now, that they didn't want women to be just pretty faces or sex objects. They wanted them to get out there, be responsible, make income for themselves, blaze the way for themselves. But that's not how it's ended up, and that's not what their goals have been. Their goals really have been, instead of blazing the way for women to have opportunity, equal opportunity, they want special privileges so women can achieve, or not achieve these things, gain these things out of the handouts of the government or men. If they wanted these equal opportunities, they first of all would have supported and passed shared parenting laws. This way they would be on equal footing with men. They wouldn't have to stay home with the children. They would get the help that they so desperately said they wanted, so women could actually get out there and work and bring home the bread if they so chose. But no, it doesn't seem like that now all women did want to do that. They don't like high-pressured, high-paying jobs or dangerous jobs. They generally like flexible hours in their work, safe and clean environments. That's what they prefer, and that's what they're doing. Because they certainly could choose all the others, but they're not, and now isn't pointing them to go anywhere else, but to stay in this so-called lace curtain or whatever they had used to call it, the pink ghetto. They always made up these things, but these are women's choices. This is what they like and don't like to do, and it's obvious. So when women say that, or now says, I laugh at this, the pay gap is there for a reason. Men and women make different choices. Women are choosing less paying jobs. That's their choice. So there is no pay gap. There's, if women, like Warren Farrell said, why men earn more, the answers are in that book. Women can earn more by working longer hours, going to school longer, taking more dangerous jobs, less flexible hours. Let me just read to you some of these documents that National Organization of Women have, through the years, proposed and told their members, and this is what they stand for. This is the National Organization for Women, who says they believe in equality, and they don't hate men, they don't hate fathers, they're for equality. So listen to this. I don't know the year on some of these. This is a now action alert on fathers' rights. Whereas, see, they're going to give this whereas thing as if it's a legal document to make you think it's like has truth to it. Whereas organizations advocating fathers' rights, whose members consist of non-custodial parents, their attorneys and their allies, are a growing force in our country, and whereas the objectives of these groups are to increase restrictions and limits on custodial parents' rights and to decrease child support obligations of non-custodial parents by using the abuse of power in order to control in the same fashion as do batterers. Whereas these groups are fulfilling their objectives by forming political alliances with conservative Republican legislatures, not true, and others, and by working for the adoption of legislation such as presumption of joint custody, yes, penalties for false reporting of domestic and child abuse, and mediation instead of court hearings. Yeah, there should be penalties for false reporting of domestic and child abuse. Yes, now? Whereas the success of these groups will be harmful to all women, but especially harmful to battered and abused women and children. Okay, fathers' rights group is going to do all that? Whereas the efforts of well-financed fathers' rights groups are expanding from a few states into many more, sharing research and tactics state by state. So I guess mothers' rights groups are okay, but fathers' rights groups, they've got to be stopped, huh? Now? And you're going to help men. You're going to help men's problems, right? Whereas many judges and attorneys are still biased against women, and fathers are awarded custody 70% of the time when they seek it, per the Association of Child Enforcement Support. That's ACES. Yeah, I'm sure they have really legitimate statistics there. But yeah, that lie has been going around. Yeah, okay, fathers are awarded custody in 7% of the time when they seek it. Okay, yeah, we know that's not true. Many judges and attorneys are still biased against women. Who might that be? Are there any? Therefore, be it resolved that the National Organization for Women begin a national alert to inform members about these fathers' rights groups and their objectives through articles in the National Now Times. And be it further resolved that, as part of this alert, Now establish a clearinghouse for related information by sharing with Now state and local chapters the available means to challenge such groups, stopping them from having their equal rights. No, I added that. Including the current research on custody and support, sample legislation, expert witnesses, and work done by Now and other groups in states where fathers' rights groups have been active. Horrible. I thought we liked fathers. I thought fathers were good. Huh? Be it further resolved that Now encourage state and local chapters to conduct and coordinate divorce custody court watch projects. We know you've done that. To facilitate removal of biased judges. I would like the removal of biased judges. Here, the Now New York State opposed memo. This is where they sent a memo opposing shared parenting laws in New York State. I'll read. The National Organization for Women, New York State, strongly urges the Assembly and Senate of New York to oppose this legislation. This bill seeks to create the statutory of presumption of joint custody for all minor children whose parents are no longer married, so that both parents can continue to share in the responsibilities and duties of the children's upbringing. Man, does that not sound like a wonderful thing? I mean, us here in the men's movement embrace it wholeheartedly. We think that parents need both children need both parents. Parents should have equal rights in that field. But no, Now doesn't believe that. I go on. The assertion that shared parenting is in the best interest of minor children is on its face untrue and is directly contradicted by the body of academic research on this subject. Are you trying to say that mothers are better parents than dads? Doesn't that go against stereotyping? And isn't that what Now opposes? Stereotyping of the genders? Isn't that what feminists believe? Oh no, but all of a sudden Now says mothers are better parents. I go on. It's untrue and is directly contradicted by the body of academic research on this subject, as well as the disastrous experience of California, one of the first states to adopt this experiment. Experiment? I thought it was a human rights, natural human rights, a natural parental right to your children. The following facts continue to be true with respect to mandatory joint custody of the children. This is a memo from Now. They say this. This is why they hid this memo on their archives, because just reading this, they should be embarrassed, because they say it's true. It's not true. They're living in, I don't know, a lot of this stuff is just made up or conjecture, lies, but it's old. Here we go. They say these are all true. To arbitrarily reassign a child's primary caregiver or disrupt the child's attachment to a primary caregiver creates an unstable, even traumatic situation for the children. Increased father involvement does not necessarily result in positive outcomes for children. This involvement by the father will have positive consequences only when it is the arrangement of choice for the particular family, and when there is a relatively cooperative and low conflict relationship between the parents. Okay, so in other words, they love this. They always hide behind this. So when there is conflict, let's not burden the children further, and let's just keep them with one parent. You know, the one that he or she's been with mostly. And fortunately, that's the mother. Isn't that nice? In families where there is a high level of conflict between the mother and father, joint custody arrangements are harmful to children. No evidence shown here. Placing them in the middle of ongoing bickering in a stressful, unstable environment with no escape. Excuse me, the presumption of shared parenting would stop all that conflict because there would be nothing to conflict with. It would be set 50-50 custody, no more fighting. The fighting comes in with when dad wants equal rights and mom doesn't want to give it to him. Where there is domestic violence, joint custody, shared parenting arrangements are never appropriate. Okay. Legislating shared parenting will not make it so, or guarantee continued relationships between fathers and children. You can't guarantee anything, but we certainly would like to do the right thing in the right direction, like giving children access to both parents. Joint custody bills have been designed to establish rights without responsibilities. Joint custody facilitates using the children to maintain access to a former partner and ongoing control of their life. This is feminist lies, of course. I'll continue. Fathers' rights groups continue to push for this legislation in spite of the body of evidence that in the majority of cases, joint custody is not in the best interest of the children. I have no idea what studies they might be talking about, but that's another one of their red herrings, is that joint custody enables batterers or ex-husbands to still be in the life of mothers. There's no truth to that at all. We just want access to our own children. Fathers' rights groups continue to promote the myth that courts are biased in favor of mothers. They actually have that written here. Now listen, guys, gals, equality-minded people, now is on their last legs. That's wishful thinking. They're not on the last legs, but they have had to pop their head out of the sand because a lot of shit's been said about them. A lot of shit has been coming out of them. Bullshit, that is. And it's embarrassing for them. They had to hide all this stuff. What kind of group has to hide their actual goals? A failing group, that is. I continue. That the courts are biased in favor of mothers. What a myth that is, huh? In litigated cases, fathers who sue for custody almost always win. Where on earth are you getting that from? Thin air. In fact, fathers are often awarded sole custody, even when sexual and physical abuse of the children is alleged and substantiated. You know, there's no footnotes at all here. Alicia could have gave some fake footnotes. You know, that just linked to some articles. It's funny. According to the American Judges Association, 70% of the time the abuser, it's funny, it's not the father now, now it's the abuser, convinces the court to give him custody. Wow. Outright lies. Existing law currently says that there is no preference for shared parenting in New York. The court may award joint custody, but in practice really does so. Legislators should be aware that the reason that more mothers have custody after divorce is that most arrangements are worked out between the parents. 95% of the litigated cases, including matrimonial cases, are settled out of court. Yes, we know that, and as you admit, mothers are getting custody most of the time because they probably aren't working as much as the men are. So, as I've said before, the fathers are getting penalized for working harder. They end up being tossed out of their houses, losing custody of their children, because now in feminist groups don't want shared parenting or equal custody. They want sole custody because they want to have the house, the custody of the children, and with that comes child support. It's a lot of goodies. Nothing to do with equality there, but now hasn't been about equality for many, many years. Legislation provided for mandated joint custody ignores the issues of domestic abuse, including child abuse. When we talk about shared parenting, it's got to be rebuttable. In other words, of course, if there's any extenuating circumstances, if a man or a woman is abusive or is a child abuser, that's different. We're talking about in a normal case, everyday cases. So, here, in conclusion, there's 2 paragraphs here at the bottom of this memo. The National Organization for Women, New York State, is in favor of primary caregiver presumption. This means that the parent who assumed primary responsibility for the children during the marriage, not financial responsibility, you notice. Either father or mother should continue to be the custodial parent. Gee, that doesn't free women from their burdens at all, does it now? Well, here I continue. Establishment of a presumption of joint custody is harmful to the children. Now New York State urges the passage of primary caretaker legislation, a realistic solution for children. That's not the solution, that's the problem. That's been the problem. Children growing up without fathers. And of course, since women do take everything when they divorce, which is 2/3 of the time initiated by women. They initiate divorce because they know they get everything. And you know what? They do get everything, but the children lose a lot. The children lose their father. Okay? We shouldn't have an incentive, this primary caretaker incentive for mostly women to take the whole ball of wax and go home. Keep the home. Now New York State urges the New York legislature to defeat A00330 and S291 and to look to research regarding the damage to children by passing mandated joint custody. Wow. So giving joint custody and giving fathers their rightful place at the parenthood table is harmful to children, you say, huh? So is now an organization for equality between the sexes or special rights for women? You decide.